can you love a kid that not even related to, that you don't not even blood? We're bringing this child into our home, and I'm going to love him with it.
I came from a family of 5 children. My mother was a single mother, and we all had separate fathers, so we were like half siblings. We were placed into foster homes. Unfortunately, back then, it really wasn't a priority for like trying to keep siblings together, and so we did all get split, which was unfortunate. Unfortunately, it is a broken system, but by God's grace, we got our girls back. Called him and said, and he's like, yes, bring him. So, and opened the door and they're like, and it was just like the most beautiful thing to see, because that was something that I did not get to experience. It's not just about tutoring. It's having that one person that believes in that child, that is there for that child, that's creating that resiliency.
People don't grasp is just how different brains can function, especially with traumatic pasts.
I really want to impress on people that are looking into fostering or like have questions or hesitant it's that support. You talk to your family, you talk to your church, you get connected to those resources, because it's one of those things where it's like when some people ask, how could you do that? It's like, how could I help?
Welcome to the Open Homes Initiative podcast, where we try to put names and faces to numbers and statistics in the foster, kinship, and adoptive arena. We as a organization are working towards a day when there will no longer be a list of children waiting for families, but a list of families ready for children. And so we love to get together with people within this arena, within this demographic, and share some of these stories, because we believe that stories matter. Stories are impactful. And ultimately, each of our stories matter to God, and as such should matter to us. And so today we get to tell another story, one with lived experience in the foster system, one with adoptive experience as a married couple, and one with a service provider experience. Just a gambit of experience that we get to discuss today as we visit with Jaime and Rebecca Beltran. And so if y'all would, just give me a brief introduction of who you are, maybe a little glimpse into what family looks like for you, and then we'll go from there.
Well, my name is Jaime Beltran, as I said earlier, and I'm currently a youth protection officer at Angelo State University. I've been doing that since December of last year. Prior to that, I was a caseworker at the West Texas Boys Ranch, did that for 10 years. Prior to that, I was a juvenile probation officer, did that for about 10 years as well.
Wow.
And I am Rebecca Beltran, and I worked at the Children's Advocacy Center of West Texas for about 17 years after I graduated from Angelo State University. And I started working at the WHIT program, which is weekly hands-on independent tutoring for children in foster care, back in August of 2022. And my husband and I met here in San Angelo, got married in December of 2012.
There you go.
And
she didn't make you come up with those numbers.
Yeah,
I know those dates, you know.
I kind of hesitated a little there. And then started our journey in the foster care world.
Okay, almost immediately then.
We actually had deep conversations about children and having children, fostering and adoption, and I think I kind of introduced Jaime to the world of foster care.
Yes.
And then he shared with me that he would be open to that prior to us getting married, and was very open to it. And so we got married, and we're married for...
It was almost 2 years, I think, before we started the process.
Yeah. We just wanted to, live with each other and enjoy that time together and make sure that we were kind of prepared to start and grow our family. So.
Okay. And so at that time, you were already working at the CAC, Children's Advocacy Center, and you were at...
Tonga County Juvenile
That's
Probation.
what I thought, based on the timeline you had just mentioned. So a lot of interaction with kids and youth and everything going into marriage. Well, that makes a lot of sense. I'm just trying to put pieces together of what I know about y'all and the family. Let's go back a little bit, though. Let's back way on up to one of the things we've not done on this podcast yet is have somebody with lived experience within the system. We've interviewed we've interviewed our bio kid, one of our bio kids, about what it's like to be on the outside of the system and have kiddos come in. We've talked to foster parents. We've talked to kinship parents. We've talked to adoptive parents, but we haven't talked to anybody that's actually got lived experience within the system. And you, Rebekah, do. Tell us a little bit, just kind of what's some of that history that you're okay with sharing.
Yeah. So I went into the foster care system back in about 1996. So it's a different world nowadays. But I came from a family of 5 children. My mother was a single mother, and we all had separate fathers. So we were like half siblings. And my mother just was trying to do the best she could, but didn't have a lot of support, and she needed some extra help and some extra guidance. So we were placed into foster homes. Unfortunately, back then, it really wasn't a priority for like trying to keep siblings together. And so it was just kind of like, blah, who's available? And so we did all get split, which was unfortunate. We had a lot of visits throughout while the case was open, so we were able to maintain the relationship throughout. And I was very blessed to be placed in honestly, if they were giving out awards, it'd be the best foster home ever. I mean, in my opinion, in my eyes.
Next to y'all's after you.
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah. No, I don't know. My mother and father who adopted me had fostered for many years prior to having me in placement. There were foster children in and out of the home while I was in foster care. It was just a very loving, supporting home. A lot of that had to do, though, with that they had a lot of support themselves. So I'm originally from Marble Falls, Texas. It's a hill country. It's a lot bigger now, but back then it was a little bit smaller, a little more tight-knit. And so the church that we attended was very supportive to my family, to me, even the schools. It was just it was a beautiful thing to see back then, now that I look back and kind of what I see now. But I would have to say that the support that my family had and that I had a CASA as well, a court-appointed special advocate, and her name was Judy. I don't remember anybody else on the case but Judy, and she made a big impact on my life. So it was just all those different entities really matter. Different people that come in and just support the families and the children while they're going through that. I truly believe that my family's faith as a whole, and then just that support, is developed who I am today. And that's something that I wanted to mirror whenever my husband and I had discussed fostering. But while I was in foster care, it was that support that really got me through it. And then, of course, my case ended in my mother just not being able to successfully correct the reason for removal, and it just being in our best interest to be adopted out. And so I was young at the time. I didn't maintain contact, and unfortunately, I did lose contact with my siblings. So that was a little rough there in the beginning. But I was adopted into a family that had tons of children, so it's kind of just that shift. It was a natural shift, and like the rest is history. I definitely am one of the minority of having a story that I had, as far as being in one placement. I actually did go back. I forgot I did go back. My mom did work services enough for me to go for a little bit, but then she just kind of faltered again. And so then I went back to the exact same placement, which is pretty unheard of.
That is very rare. Yes. Yeah. Yours is a very, I don't know, God ordained or watched over story is what it.
But that kind of leads me into, and I'll let my husband talk. That's kind of what happened with our girls that we adopted. So another rare instance of returning back. So, but that's my story in a nutshell. And I love to share with anyone who has questions, just seeing that perspective or hearing that perspective. Right. But if I really want to impress on people that are like looking into fostering or like have questions or hesitant, it's that support. It's the support. It's having things like this podcast or having the Open Homes Initiative for those families, or the WHIT program, the free tutoring, the CASAs. There's support there. And so just leaning on that support and leaning on our Heavenly Father.
Wow. That's neat. Let me ask you a couple questions before we get into the next stage of that story. So you were young and one placement. And like you said, that's not the norm for kiddos that are adopted in particular, right? There's quite a few that'll come into the foster system, stay with one placement, and then go back home. But if it gets into the adoptive side of things and a case ends, one is not the norm. And so that's a beautiful part of your story. The sad part, like you mentioned, is the not having contact with the siblings. And that is something that has changed a good bit in today's culture and where the system is today. They try very hard to keep siblings together. It's not always possible, especially if there's 5. That's a lot of kids to keep in one place, but they try to keep siblings much more together. There's the question, though, that I'm curious of is, I was listening to another podcast this last week, and they were talking about just with adoptive kids in general, whether they are adopted straight from the hospital, whether they even surrogates, use a surrogate to adopt a kiddo, all of those kind of things will come out of the system. There's what they've termed the primal problem, and the idea of feeling out of place in this family simply because either A, I don't look like them, I don't, some of just the mannerisms, the interactions, just kind of this connection to a bio parent that I don't have that my siblings do. Did you experience any of that, or was there any tension, especially maybe around the teenage years, or is your story even?
Yeah. No. So, which is funny because
Yeah.
my ethnicity, I am half black, half white. I
Okay.
never knew my biological father. My biological mother was fully white, and I was adopted into an all-white family. And hey, I'm here. But no, I did not experience feeling left out or feeling. I also think that might have been because they had already been fostering for a long time. And
Okay.
so they just had this dynamic, and my adoptive siblings had a dynamic
Mhm.
of just being very welcoming. And also, when I had maybe questions or things like that, I felt very okay with asking those or saying, like, hey, you know, this, that, or the other.
Right.
I would say I was definitely more connected to my adoptive father.
Mhm.
I've always, and that's how I always had been. And my mother, who adopted me, was also adopted. She was adopted as an
Okay.
infant. As an infant, she was This was
Wow.
1948. She was born, and she was
Wow.
adopted straight out of the hospital.
And now we're going on
Um,
3 generations of
yeah,
adoptive families.
yeah,
That's really cool.
yeah. And so we had that connection there. So I could go to
Okay,
her
yes.
if, you know, I felt like crazy funny story though. This was weird, but I actually didn't know my full name was Rebekah for the longest time. So my adoptive family, my family called me Becky, and only my family can call me Becky.
Okay. I've
My
never heard
f-
anybody call you
Thank
Becky.
yes,
So
okay. And when I say family, I don't mean my husband and my kids.
Okay.
I mean my family. So I just thought my name was Becky. Then my friends started calling me Becca, which I
Mhm.
liked. And then I think I saw my birth certificate somewhere. And I was like, what? My name is Rebecca? Like,
That's funny.
did not know that. So then professionally, I was like, people are going to call me Rebecca. So that's
This
kind of
is-
how that developed. But anytime I had questions, I could ask. I never felt out of place. If we went on trips,
Mm.
my adoptive foster parents at the time would ask ahead of time. The judge can, you know, I got to go to Hawaii. Like, can we take her out of state to
Wow.
Hawaii?
Yeah.
Stuff like that. So I was very included in a lot of things. And it was a long process. Usually cases don't last that long
Mhm.
anymore. I went into care in 1996.
Mhm.
I did go back for about a year and then came back in probably 98.
Okay.
But from 98 to, I'm trying to do my math on how old I am without giving away how old I am. But I would say I wasn't officially adopted just because of everything until I was 14. And I was,
Wow.
yeah, I was like, I think 9 when I went into care around there. So it just took a long time due to other things. But no, I would feel like I had a good sense of my culture,
Well,
a good
it's
sense of
neat that you, anything that you were going through, there was a sense that mom had
Right.
already gone through it.
Exactly.
And so that's a neat tie that
Yeah.
you've got that ability to go and have those conversations.
Yeah.
Go, you dealt with this. How did you
Yeah.
walk through this? Or did you relate to this? Or you've even probably navigated things that I had no clue I would have faced had you not navigated them the way
Yes.
that you did.
Yeah, exactly.
So-
So it's kind of neat to have that connection with my mom is
Yeah.
that she went through it definitely at a different, I mean, she was an infant,
Mm.
but she went through the same emotions of like thinking about her bio mom and dad and just thinking what that would have been like and having those
Yes.
questions. And yeah, those may have popped up a little bit, and I was able to talk with her about it. Yeah.
That's neat. So let's move then to today. And so y'all are a foster adoptive family. And so tell us a little more of that story. So 2012, you end up married. You've already talked about this beforehand. This is probably something on the horizon. 2 years into marriage, we kind of go down the foster journey and take it from there. Where are we at?
I recall when we were licensed, it was actually April 24th, 2014 was on my birthday.
Okay.
Yeah. And we became licensed, and then we had, our first placement, if I recall correctly, who are now our adopted daughters, Madeline and Sophia. At that time, Madeline is the oldest, and she was probably, 2 years old at that time?
Three. She just turned 3.
Okay. And Sophia was about a year behind her, I wanted to say.
17 months.
Yeah. And so they were our first placement that we had.
Okay.
And these little girls coming into our home. I'm kind of like, what am I doing? Like this is something brand new.
That's what every parent does when they get a new kid. And y'all didn't even get the first couple years of practice.
Exactly. But they were with us for about 6 months, I believe, before they ended up going back home to their mother. And so then in between that time, after they went back home to their bio mom, we fostered a couple more boys and kids and whatnot. In between there, it's probably maybe another 2 years, I wanted to say, after that.
Oh, wow.
Yes, it was actually 2015 when we got our first placement, the girls. So,
Yes.
And then in 2017, they came back to us.
And that in itself was an amazing story, much what I believe God-driven, because, we hadn't seen or heard from them in that time.
Really?
And then, I recall Beck giving me a call saying, hey, I got something to tell you. So she can definitely share that better than I can, because she's the one that experienced that. So,
yeah, I happened to log on to a website that shows children coming into care, and I got notified that children that we had fostered were back in care and they were needing placement. And so I called Jaime and said, didn't even skip a beat. Yes.
yes,
And so unfortunately, it should have been a little smoother. So we're not going to say it was definitely God had a hand in us getting notified, or us finding out, that should be the right word, that they were back in care. That whole segment could be worked on a little better. The way it should work is when children do come back into foster care, the previous placement should be notified or reached out immediately.
I can agree with that. There's already relationships. It would be a much smoother transition.
Yeah, and that is the way it is supposed to be, but unfortunately it is a broken system. So, but by God's grace, we got our girls back, called him and said, and he's like, yes, bring them. So they came back to us, and they actually remember. They were, because we're in the same house. We don't have any other kids, nothing's changed. And so they were like remembering things. And so.
And they were 2 and 3, roughly, a year and a half and 3 whenever.
Yeah. So then about 5, 6 years old and 5 years old and 3
so
the next time.
Yeah. But they're remembering. We've got a friend that talks about they had a placement, and we knew him at this time. Cute twins, I believe. And they went back home, and then about 2 years later, mom calls and says, hey, we're in town, and they would like to just come see y'all. And so they come in, and they've got other kids at the time. So they ran in and go straight to their bedrooms, and they're like, all right, mom, you can go. We'll stay here for a couple hours or whatever. You go do it. And it was like, we're here. We know this is our home. And
that comfort.
And they love telling that story. But I can see that but they were older. But to go from 3, 1.5, and 3 to still remembering that's neat.
It was, and yeah.
And what's wild too is if I recall correctly, after they came back, they notified us that, hey, we have a brother now.
It was actually the girls that said, we have a brother, and we were like, what?
And
where's he?
Yeah. So I think, we reached out to the folks, dealing with the girls, and we said, just bring them on too. Let's have them come with us too.
And so
2 weeks later, maybe.
I was actually, unfortunately, a month later. That was a little rough time, because the girls, our son had a different bio mom. So that's the only reason they weren't all together. Okay. So as soon as we found out that they had a brother, and they were basically DFPS was trying to watch that situation and see if, and the girls asked about him probably at least every other day. Are we going to get our brother? We're going to get our brother. And then we were finally notified. Yeah. Because at this point, they really want to try to keep siblings together. We were considered what you call fictive kin because we had the girls previously.
Okay.
And so we pretty much were like almost like kin in a sense because of having the girls before. So they brought our 8-month-old son to us while the girls were at, they were still at pre-K that time. And so they were at pre-K and we were like, we're not even going to tell them he's coming today because what if something changes or happens?
Absolutely.
And so they filled all the paperwork out. And my favorite thing was the worker that brought him from the town he came from and handed him to me. And my husband said he just laid his little head like on my shoulder immediately. And then we got him in paperwork, got him in the car, and got to pick up the girls at pre-K. And like just they were talking to us, getting in the car, and they and opened the door, and they're like, and it was just like the most beautiful thing to see, because that was something that I did not get to experience. And so it was really beautiful to be able to be a part of that for them, to keep them all together.
Yes.
And so inseparable, even though they may pick on each other. Yes.
Back then they loved each other.
Oh my God. Like, I want to hold him. But yeah.
And now we've had them as long as we've had, and now they're 14, 12, and
Okay.
And so it's been all those years, and I don't know, it's just something that I'm forever grateful to have been able to participate in, and to be able to do. And like I said, I just because of this lady right here, kind of introduced me to that, and it's just something great.
Yeah. And our kids are very aware of their origin story.
Okay.
We don't go into extreme detail about, the reasons why, but they almost take pride in being a part of, like, having foster and adoption being a part of their story. Yeah. And they absolutely love helping with the WHIT program whenever we have events. They loved helping out at the, Boys Ranch. They really, it's the heart that they have because of what they went through for others, and knowing that what they're doing is helping others. They just really like it. So
it's incredible to see kids, whether adoptive kiddos like y'all have, or our bios, or those that are invested in this system, the difference it makes in their lives is you cannot overstate the impact on a positive sense. And that's one of the things that scares so many people about investing in this, to take part in the Boys Ranch and invest in those young men out there, or to get into the foster care option, or even to simply go do tutor some kids, right? 1 hour a week or whatever it is. I don't know if I could get invested in them, and they get taken away, or we lose this or whatever, or what are my kids exposed to? All of those kind of questions. And time again, every single person that we talk to, they go, this was beneficial in ways we never could have imagined. Yeah. And it's produced children that will turn into young adults with empathy, with understanding, with grace, that so many people in our society today are just lacking.
Yes.
In many ways.
I watching that podcast episode of y'all's bio daughter, like that, just every time I see it, it just like tears, because she is so eloquent in how she shares how it has positively impacted her, and to be so young to share that, I'm like, that's what I believe and see in my own children. They're not quite that old yet, but I just think it's beautiful that she was open to sharing, and just so raw in that. And it was, like you said, it's all positive. So
yeah, it's not easy.
As I'm crying, it's all these are happy tears. As I tell them, you're just I
mean, it's not easy, but it's so many things in life. Like we live in a society that wants to make everything really easy. We want comfort, we want security, we want our push-button garages, and we can close the door behind us, and we got our 6-foot fences, so we don't have to. We can shut the world out, and we can isolate, and we can protect. We can put on Foster 360. Shout out to that organization with First Methodist. We can put on our Life 360 on our phones. We can know where everybody is all the time. Everything's safe and secure. And yet what we find in mature, healthy adults that give back, that think outside themselves, is oftentimes conflict difficult life circumstances that they've worked through, an experience of realizing that the world is so much bigger than just themselves, all those kind of things. And we isolate from that to a degree that oftentimes I think it stunts and even hinders some growth.
Absolutely.
And so it's interesting the way that this journey, that fostering, that adoption can give you space within your family when they're young to start planting some of these seeds that will really take root. Hopefully, like I'm looking forward to the day that I'm 60 and watching my kids do amazing things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
Hopefully
yes.
because of things like this.
Yes.
And so it's and lives change like what y'all are doing for these three. You know, it's incredible. So on that note, I want to go back to some of your past, your background, and you can go back as far as you want, upbringing, etc. But I'm really curious to hear how some of juvenile, it wasn't juvenile probation. It was juvenile probation.
Yes.
The juvenile probation side, the West Texas Boys Ranch, and then even into what you're doing today has impacted the way that you see youth, family, the way that you raise your kiddos, etc. So wherever you want to take that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we could start back, in 2005 when I first started at juvenile probation. They always have this little saying that you don't ever plan to go into juvenile probation. It just kind of falls in your lap.
Okay.
And sure enough, that happened. But I thought, it'd be a good opportunity to, work with young people, kind of help them, the ones that have issues with the law and whatnot. And so, I started working with them, doing that for, like I said, 10 years,
Okay.
kind of just seeing the, just the pain and the hurt that a lot of these young people are dealing with, drug addiction, sexual abuse, all that kind of horrible things. But being able to just kind of be that encouraging factor, to them. They'd come in and see me a couple times a month. Okay, you failed the drug test. What are we going to do differently this time?
Yes.
What can we do differently? Okay, this isn't working in the home. How can we help you, make it begin to work, make things begin to click in the home, not only with the child, but with the parents too. Because again, I truly believe this a lot of times, if you're going to want your child to improve, things within the family need to improve.
Absolutely.
And that includes the parents. A lot of times, parents would get with me and say, oh, I'm not the problem. I'm not the one with the issues. Yes, but you're not helping. So, it kind of gave me, I guess you can say, just some insight on, okay, what can we do to help these young people,
Right.
In their home when their parents themselves are dealing with their own issues, and I said I did that for about 10 years. Then I had the opportunity to move on to the West Texas Boys Ranch to be a caseworker.
Okay.
And I did that from 2015 to 2025, this past December. So I did that for about another 10 years.
Wow. Okay.
And that in itself was kind of like seeing things on a whole different side. Probation, you're on the side of the law, on the side of, judges, attorneys, and all that kind of stuff. But now here at the Boys Ranch, you're dealing more closely with the families.
Okay.
You're not really dealing too much with the law side of it, the judicial side of it, but it's just more I would say, just intimate with the families.
The
and
relational side of it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There you go. Where we need our young man placed here because of these issues going on at home. So we said, okay, what can we do to assist this young man in, ultimately for family reunification? Because they'll come out to us maybe a year, couple years, but our ultimate goal is for them to go back home.
Right.
And so, being able to take what I've learned from the Boys Ranch, then from probation, using those two things together into even raising our own children,
Yes.
Has really helped me a lot, being able to see things differently and say, okay, so why, is maybe our oldest daughter dealing with something like this? What can we, what can I do differently, or how can I see something differently, and working with that to come to, to an understanding, come to something to help her understand, okay, this is, what I need to do instead.
I can only imagine in so many of those cases, what people don't grasp, this is where I should start with that. What people don't grasp is just how different brains can function, especially with traumatic pasts.
Sure.
Right. And so many of the cases in the juvenile probation, or so many of the young men at West Texas Boys Ranch have like adoptive pasts, or have trauma and a time spent in the system to some degree that they've never really worked through, and their brains quite literally function differently. Like the two that we have right now, we're constantly having to remind ourselves of that. It's like, just sit still right here for 5 minutes, and we get mad and we get frustrated. And we're like, hold on, their brains literally will not allow. They're not trying to be disobedient in this sense. We've got to figure out a whole different way to parent.
Yes.
And so with your kiddos, I mean, going into the system is one thing. Going back home and then coming back into it produces a whole nother level of things. And so that probably did equip you really well to go, okay, I can't just relate in this sense to this. It's not the way I was raised, or it's not the way my brain even works. How do we de-escalate? How do we empathize? How do we move into that? That's incredible. Like, you're specifically equipped for this.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And there was a time, at the boys' ranch, and I'd sit and talk with my wife about this, where we'd have a number of adopted boys come into the home. I'm thinking, man, these kids have been with them for 5-6 years, and so then it puts in my mind thinking, are we going to be dealing with this with our kids? I start kind of doubting or whatever. But I think just kind of learning and working with these families and seeing how they're going about doing things. Okay, well, maybe within our own home,
right?
Change some things up.
How can we change something now to see dividends later?
Yes. And so you're right. I mean, it's just, maybe it's the Lord saying, hey, you know what, Jaime, you need this experience here for this amount of time, this experience here for this amount of time, to help you be able to bring these young kids into your home and to raise them to be successful people.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it goes back to even the story, like the third generation adoption kind of thing, right? A unique ability to relate, to invest in these lives, especially as they move into those teenage years, because there will be difficulties. That's one thing we know is coming.
Yes. And Beck and I have talked many times whenever we've had issues with our own kids. And I said, well, this is things that we're dealing with here with some of these boys. So it's expected, okay, we're dealing with this with our oldest. We should pretty much guarantee it's going to be expected with our middle child, and maybe even our younger child, so it's kind of learning from experience, I guess.
It is. I'm curious, just because you mentioned that, they talk about like the birth order connection, and yours are all siblings. Do you see like the classic oldest is the more rule follower, and then the middle child? So you mentioned with you not knowing your name, your full name, until much later. Our middle daughter, the one that we did the interview with, everybody now knows her as Jolly, right? Her name is Jolly, essentially, Jolly. Everybody, but she'll introduce herself and she'll say, "Hi, I'm Jolly," and people look at her, right? And like, your name is an emotion, and she's always like, "Why do people look at me like that?" And I explained to her one time, like, that's like saying, "Hi, I'm happy." Like, no, but what's your name, right? I'm Jolly, and then they find out much later, oh, like, your name's actually Jocelyn. You have an adult, a professional name, kind of like that. But her name's Jolly. But she is the classic middle child, right? She is the fun-loving, the go meet people, the get in the middle of the crowd kind of thing. And then we've got the baby, so we've got that birth order kind of thing. Do y'all have that, or?
To a T. It is like, I actually want to do more research on birth order, especially birth order with like adoption. Theirs did not change.
Right.
Mine changed. I was the oldest in my biological family. Well, back that up. I was the second oldest. My oldest sister actually was mentally challenged, but so I took the role of the oldest.
Functioned as
I was a year younger than her, but I functioned as the oldest. And then I went into my adoptive family, and I was the second youngest.
Wow.
Out of 8. I mean, 8 including myself. So I was like the shift, right, of that. But our children, the birth order pretty much, it stayed the same. We didn't foster other children while we had them in the home, so that didn't change.
Yes.
But oh my gosh, if someone could write a book, you could take our middle daughter and she is a middle child.
She's the one that worries you, is what you're saying.
she's
strong-willed.
She's strong-willed.
But excites you at the same time.
Yes, like no one will ever take advantage of that little girl, which that makes me very happy. Like, she is not going to have somebody push her around, and she's not going to have the wool pulled over her eyes, which is amazing. She just needs some direction on, hey, you're still a child, and we are still your parents, and we're still here to guide you. And then our oldest is, she wouldn't, some of the things our middle says and does, our oldest is like, oh my gosh, like, there's no way I would ever in a million years, right?
Yes.
And then our son is hysterical. He's like an old man. Yeah. He's just very literal, do not say things like it's raining cats and dogs, because he's like, no, it's not. Or everybody and their dog will be there. Everybody's bringing their dog. Like, he's very literal.
That's funny.
He's very level-headed.
Yes.
But he is definitely our most compassionate. Like, he feels all the feels.
Yes.
So yeah, absolutely.
That's funny.
Yeah.
I was just curious
100%.
when you mentioned that. I was like,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
that's fun. Well, let's take a moment to kind of shift from there. We've mentioned multiple times the WHIT program, and will you take just a few moments to kind of discuss what that is, what kind of led to the development of that, and how it can serve or give a place for people to serve our community?
Yeah. So I just knew at a very young age I had that support when I was in care, and I knew I wanted to be involved in helping other families and children that were involved in foster care. So that's why I started out the CA Children's Advocacy Center. And then I had the opportunity to come on board with the WHIT program. So Jennifer Lisson is the president and founder of the WHIT program. And she was one of my CASA volunteers when I was at the Children's Advocacy Center. And she shares that while she was a CASA, she was working with her children she was advocating for and realized that they were all extremely behind their peers. And it was not through a learning disability. It was simply being in care and maybe placements and education not being a priority.
Right.
And so, long story short, she was trying to find like tutoring for them and help for them. And she kept getting the door kind of slammed in her face or just not finding anything. And so her husband said, why don't you start something? And I'm going to start something. And she did not take no for an answer. She went out there. She created this WHIT program from the ground up, worked very hard, tirelessly to make this happen. And that was in 2021, about August of 2021. And then she was basically kind of running it on her own using volunteer university students from Angelo State. I always asked her about it. And then in August of 2022, I came on part-time and got to help recruit tutors, recruit more universities, also get the word out to DFPS to get children referred. And then I came on full-time in August 2023, and we started serving the entire state of Texas. So children that are involved in an open DFPS case qualify for our services. So that is if they are in foster care, if they are placed in kinship care, or if they are on a monitored return, they can receive our free tutoring services. We match them with a volunteer tutor, and it's a one-on-one match. They get to have tutoring to help them get up to grade level because, like I said previously, most children in foster care are extremely behind their peers.
Well, I'm sure you know a bunch of these statistics, but they mention every time a kid moves placement. So every displacement, I think is the way they say it. Each time a kid gets displaced, so that that initial removal from family and going into a foster home, on average, sets a kiddo back, and it's staggering to me, but it'll set them back 6 months of educational.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And so then if that placement doesn't work out and they go back to another one, then mentally, though they may not be in the educational system placed backward, but mentally and educationally, internally, they're a year behind just with 2 placements. And so what y'all are doing is meeting that gap.
Meeting the gap. Yeah. And so it's a very simplistic, simple concept. And I think when we go out and we travel all over to share about it, to recruit tutors, they're like, this didn't exist before? No, it did not. So
it's staggering that 2021.
So you do not have to be a university student. We have tutors from all walks of life. We have active military that are tutors. We have retired teachers. We have lawyers. Just somebody who's passionate about it.
One of our foster kiddos had somebody that was an ASU professor.
That was a tutor.
Volunteered some time for tutoring.
So it's just a beautiful experience because it's not just about tutoring. It's having, like I said earlier, it's having that one person that believes in that child, that is there for that child, that's creating that resiliency. And it means something to the child that, wow, this person's not getting paid to come out and see me and help me in my schooling. So they're really there to just be that support and help them reach their educational potential. So whether you are fostering children that could benefit from our tutoring, or you feel like you don't feel like you can foster right now or be respite, you could look into being a volunteer tutor. 1 hour a week. That's all we ask. So yeah, it's a very flexible, amazing program that I love to see flourish. And my favorite part is matching the children with the tutors. And the tutors are getting so much out of it. They're sharing, I love that I have this opportunity. So
Yes.
just-
Yeah. It's interesting to hear that from your perspective, and you going, the one person I remember in my personal case from however long ago was Judy, my CASA, right? I'm not remembering the judge's name. I don't remember
attorneys.
I don't remember the attorneys. I don't remember any of the caseworkers, but Judy invested, and I still remember her now years later. And so now I have the opportunity to help others plug in and make that. That's really, really interesting and a neat part of what you get to do. All right, I think that's the majority of the questions. Is there anything else y'all can think of that so if you're thinking of fostering, if you're thinking of encouraging somebody towards adoption, serving, getting involved, anything else you'd like to mention before we kind of wrap things up?
I think, talking with friends over the years, about foster care and a lot of them kind of asking questions. Is this something you're going to be doing? Is this something you want to do? And even after the fact, bringing the kids. I remember I had one friend tell me, can you love a kid that not even related to, that you don't, not even blood? And I just said, my thing, we're bringing this child into our home, and I'm going to love him with everything I got. Whether they like it or not, I'm going to provide everything I can to this kid and love this kid, and really just be that support for that child. And it's really, people, I couldn't do that. Everybody's capable.
Yeah.
You just, you gotta find it, do it, get it, love.
Well, it almost comes natural once the kid walks in.
Exactly.
We laugh whenever we were getting into fostering. Different people are kind of in that. We don't know how you could do it. And hands down, one of my favorite stories to tell is my wife's dad, right? And there was some of that. How can you do that? You don't even know when they come in. And to a T, I mean, every single one of our kids, the moment that they walked in the doors to his house the first time, it was like they were his. It was like, this is one of my grandkids.
Yep.
Like the moment that they walked in and the moment they left, it was nothing changed. It was like, how could you not? And it was a Vietnam vet, truck driver guy. And as soon as they walk in, the walls come down because you go, this is a kid that came from a situation that I don't even want to think of. What can I do to invest in their lives right now? I've got another friend that has an adoptive kiddo, and he got 3 bios and 1 adopted, and he consistently will go, there was a conversation he had with his wife. He's like, I remember when this one was born and these 2 were born. I cannot picture what was going on when this kiddo was born. And his wife's always like, that's the adoptive one. He's like, oh
my God.
oh yeah, that's why I don't remember that. I don't remember being at the hospital for them. But he doesn't even consider him in his mind in that same way. It's just, these are my kids.
Yes, and that's, I think once you get that, like you said, they come into the home, stamp approve that, that's it. They're ours, And I look back now at all 3 of they're almost all going to be teenagers.
Yeah.
And I just can't picture a day with them not even being in our home.
Yeah.
From Maddox, who was 8 months old, now 9 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And all of them growing up over that time. Like I said, I don't see them as though they're my adopted kids. No, they're my kids.
Right.
They're our kids.
And it is that,
Incredible.
it's that support that you shared, that your wife's father, that's the support we get from our family, from my husband's, from my mother-in-law to my parents. That's what it is you can do this. You can do it if you have that heart for it, because you're going to have that support. You talk to your family, you talk to your church, you get connected to those resources, because it's one of those things where it's like, when people ask, how could you do that? It's like, how could I not?
Yeah.
Because how could I not continue to share what was shared with me? I would not be who I am if I didn't have somebody that said, I'm doing this. So.
Yeah. Not everybody's going to be fostering. Not everybody's going to be adopting. But like you said, everybody can do something. And so as we wrap this one up, I just want to point out some of the agencies, some of the opportunities that we mentioned. If you are interested in fostering, by all means, contact us. We would love to have a conversation about what that looks like. But if you're just going, I can't foster, but I would love to get involved, the WHIT program would love to have you. You can tutor a kiddo You could get introduced into the foster system just through that. We mentioned juvenile probation or boys ranch. There's a ton of volunteer opportunities out at the boys ranch, and CASA is another one. I was trying to think. There was a number of them that we've mentioned in this. CASA is what's called, and Rebecca mentioned it, a court-appointed special advocate, and you essentially go be very much their advocate in the court system, and so you get to present on their behalf before the judge, and then enjoy some time with them in between, get to know the kids, care for them, get to know some foster families. And so there's just a number of ways that you can pour into this community. And if none of those sound good, call us and we can come up with plenty of others. So, well, thank you all for joining us. I am really encouraged by your story, encouraged by y'all, encouraged by your heart, excited for your kiddos and their future, looking forward to what's to come on that front. But that wraps up another episode of the Open Homes Initiative podcast. Thank you all for tuning in. Like and subscribe, share all of those good things if you would.